The Benmore is in the Green Book. So the Green Book was a kind of travel directory for African Americans in the South, or maybe the whole country, where African Americans could stay. Because of course during segregation they couldn't stay in hotels anywhere else in the city. So just thinking through how many hotels that were in the Green Book are still around today. Director of Legacy Places Initiative at the. So in this space, this community of Centennial Hill and really the city of Montgomery have all wanted to see the Benmore survive and thrive and be reimagined. And the Conservation Fund was able to come on board a few months ago, negotiate with the owner, and then acquire the space for future preservation. So we're excited about that opportunity and really excited to work with the partners moving forward. A really cool point to all of this, if we're able to get this right, we're preserving a space that gave refuge to African Americans as they were traveling through the city of Montgomery. And they knew from that book, this is where to come. And so this place was a place for staying, partying, eating, but it was also a refuge and a safe location for families to stop when they were visiting Montgomery. Now we're in the Majestic Cafe. This is where I'm sure Dr. King and other civil rights leaders would have come and eaten, as his home was right down the street. And so, as you can tell, it needs a lot of work, but you know, this is a place that deserves preservation. This is the third floor of the Benmore, and if you can see the room, very modest, not big. This is the bathroom. Toilet, sink, shower. So that was all the space they had, but I can imagine it worked at the time. Yeah, if you were a supporter of the Montgomery bus boycott, if you were a Harry Belafonte, a Sammy Davis Jr., or Benjamin Mays, or James Baldwin, and you came to Alabama, in Montgomery, to support the civil rights movement, chances are you would have stayed in the Benmore Hotel. Now, ultimately what this becomes is still being determined, but what we know is sometimes things are too valuable to lose, and the Benmore is one of those places that we have to do everything we can to try to figure out how to preserve this historic space. So this is the Afro Club. This would have been where Billie Holiday, Little Richard, B.B. King, Tina Turner, all would have played here. If you would imagine, if you came to Montgomery, where else would you perform? There were other clubs and things like that, but nothing to this magnitude, a rooftop club. And you know, I would imagine it may have been one of the only ones in the state where African Americans could have a good time and kind of release the stress of the day. I can't imagine people coming up here dealing with the issues and the challenges they had to deal with, and how this room could have been a sanctuary for them to kind of just release and relax and enjoy music and enjoy company and enjoy conversation. So this room probably was one of the few places in the city that could happen. This space holds a lot of memories for this community, and really tells a beautiful story of how people can also have a good time, even though segregation and all the things were happening. But this is a space that tells an important story, and I think a victory in some ways, that an African American could purchase and build a hotel to allow safe passage and safety for other African Americans as they were traveling through. So just a beautiful reminder that even in the most trying of times, there is victory and success, and the Benmore is an example of that. During the early days of the Civil Rights Movement, white and blacks would come to this hotel to discuss how they can move forward. And so they would lock this in case somebody wanted to come in who didn't need to be here or was hostile. And they would use these holes to look through to see who it was. And so that's kind of a little piece of history that still lives in this building. On December 5th, 1955, Dr. King would have gave his famous speech at Hope Street Baptist Church to begin being introduced to the world. But before that, he was standing right here at the Benmore Hotel giving a speech to young men, and he would leave from here, go to Hope Street Baptist Church, and be introduced to the world. This community housed a lot of the people who helped lead the Civil Rights Movement. And I think a lot of people consider this the brains of the Civil Rights Movement because of the different professionals that lived here. But the Cincinnati Hill community, I think, was founded shortly after the Civil War, maybe even before, but I know it's one of the first communities in the city, and certainly the Benmore serves as an anchor ever since it's been here for this community. And you had a lot of professionals that lived here. The professors from Alabama State, doctors, lawyers, lived in this community. When you think about the historic sites close to here, you have the Dexter King Parsonage, you have the Harris Home, you have Bricklayers Hall, the office where Dr. King's first office was when he was elected MIA president. You have Mr. Rufus Lewis, who was instrumental in the bus boycott, staying right across the street. Miss Georgia Gilmore, one of the cooks that powered the movement and raised money to help the Montgomery bus boycott. 1965, Jackson Street. This street, a march was held here, and Dr. King was here, all of them, and they came out of a church that's right across the street, and they marched downtown. And so this building has seen, really, in many ways, the beginning and the ending of the Civil Rights Movement. So it has served and been here as a beacon. And so it is worth doing everything we can to preserve, and worth doing everything we can to ensure that others know about it. I don't know how many times I've driven by this place so many years and I did not know what it was, but now it's the time for us to understand that history and understand the importance of what preservation can do for a community, and how this could be something, hopefully, that is a catalyst for revitalization in this area. The challenge has been, you have to have a willing seller, and you have to have someone who wants to sell a historic property for it to be preserved, so that's the now, where it came on the market, and I think once it came on the market, everybody's face dropped. Like, no one could believe it was on the market, because it had been here sitting for a long time, but it may have been for sale previously, but just hadn't happened in a long time. And when it became for sale, we were contacted because we're understood to have the capacity to move quickly as an organization to acquire real estate. And so we were contacted, and we began negotiations and got to a number that worked for everyone, and here we are. So when we think about why now, it seems like in this climate that we're in, finding ways to preserve history and tell the truth is more valuable than ever. And this is an opportunity to preserve history and tell the truth of a period in time that I believe tells the story of some of the greatest Americans to ever walk. So this tells the stories of African Americans in this community that stood up at a time when it was dangerous to do so. And they did that planning, some of it here. This place provided refuge. And in the 50s and 60s, it was dangerous for a black man or a black woman. And this place provided safety in a number of ways, where you could get a good night's rest, where you could get a meal, where you could get a haircut, where you could be treated like a man and like a woman. And you could experience what it was like to stay in a hotel as opposed to sleeping in your car and peeing on the side of the road, which is what a lot of African Americans had to do during that period. And so if you can imagine being someone who had been traveling for 10 to 15 years through the Black Belt as a black family, never having anyone to sleep, never having a place to stay. You just have to sleep in your car, bring jars so you can pee, bring your food so you can eat. The Benmore was an answer for that. And so I think it's never a bad time to do what's right, and it's right to preserve this space.